Everyone, we're going to be doing a super fun project today and making some model magic creatures. You're going to be getting a half of a package of model magic. A number of you probably used this with me last year. It's one of my favorite things. It's really fun. It feels really cool in your hands. It's kind of like super squishy marshmallows. And when you get it, what I want you to do first is, like you can see me in the video here, I want you to start playing with it. Stretch it, pull it, smash it. We want to soften this up so it gets nice and easy to work with. When you first take it out, it's a little bit stiff, so if we can get it worked, then you'll start being able to pull it into kind of a long squishy strand, and that's what we want. We always want to keep working with it. Even if you put a piece aside, make sure that you're kind of rolling it a little bit just to keep it soft, because it will stick to itself. Okay, that's the fun nature of bottle magic. We don't need to glue it together. We can just sort of stick it. And as long as it's nice and soft and workable, it will just easily stick to itself, so we don't need to add anything else to it. We are going to go ahead and add some color to these. If you'll remember from last year, some of you who worked with me on this, you can color it before you start sculpting, or you can also color it after. So let's just say you want to add something later on. You can always wait until your project is completely dry, and then you can go ahead and color a little bit more on top of it with marker if you would like to. So what I'm doing here is I'm breaking off a little piece. Now, mind you, you do not have to do the same project I'm doing, and you certainly don't have to use the same colors. I'm just kind of going through this to show you how I made my characters, and then you're free to create your own characters. So, of course, first thing you want to think about is what color is your creature. I have some vague idea of what I'm going to do here. I want to make some kind of an alien, sort of squid-like octopus creature. So I decided to go with green. So you can go ahead and load up your clay with green. Now, mind you, this has to be a water-based marker. I'm using some Mr. Sketch because I have those handy. You can use Crayola markers. Do not use a permanent marker or an Expo marker or anything like that. It's just got to be a regular old water-based marker. Doing maybe 4, 5, even 6 good passes with some markers will give you a nice color. Remember to fold it in half, not sticking your fingers on the wet marker part, or you're going to get marker all over your fingers. So I'm not at any point directly touching where I've drawn with the marker. I always fold it in half before I mix. Okay, and I'm also remembering to kind of save. I saved some white because I wanted to save some white to make sure I had enough for some eyeballs and things like that. Or if I want to add something else that's a little different color, I saved a little piece so I have something to play with. Now I decided on the body shape I want to make. And for this character, I decided to kind of go with a little bit of a peanut shape. So I rolled out a ball. It's nice and smooth. Now I'm rolling out kind of an egg shape, and then I'm going to kind of roll it in the middle with a finger just to get that kind of shape that I want. And that looks pretty good to me. So I decided to go with this one here. And you can see I just used one finger to create kind of that little peanut shape for this character. But you can make yours like a marshmallow shape. You can make a cube shape. You can make a cone shape. You can do an oval. Whatever you want, just think about the kind of character you're making to determine the body shape. This clay, once you get the shape you want, you don't want to handle this roughly or work with it while it's sitting on the table. You want to make sure you're very delicately holding it or pushing into it any time you carve a shape, because it's really easy to pull out of shape. So a delicate hand is super important. I'm not using any fancy tools for this. I'm just going to be using some things I have on my desk. So you can use a pencil. And what I'm doing here is just pushing in some holes where I'm going to insert my eyeballs. I like to do that because I think it looks better than just sticking them on top. You don't have to do this. You could just roll them all and stick them on top. I just like the way this looks better. I think it looks a little bit more realistic, and I think it also holds the clay a little bit better, so it's less likely to fall off and then have to be glued. If that does happen when your piece dries, a little Elmer's glue is all you need to stick it back together. So I'm just very gently kind of smoothing and adjusting the shape as I need to. Now I'm going to go ahead and just kind of re-soften my white clay a little bit, and I'm just pulling off a couple of pieces to make eyeballs with. And you can see I'm not making a big piece here. So you're really going to want to get a sense of how big the piece should be before you stick it, because remember, it's going to stick. So make sure it's about the size you want before you tap it into place. And my creature here has 2 eyes. Your creature can have 1 eye, like a Cyclops. It can have 4 or 5 or 10 eyes. Whatever you want it to have is okay. Just make sure that you're planning the right shape for those pieces. And again, you can see that I'm holding this super gently. Um, what I am thinking about is what other kind of body parts that I want to add. And you can see that I saved some green, and I did that on purpose. So you want to think ahead about, well, what am I going to need for my character? I know we're not sketching anything out, and some of this might be very spontaneous. You might not really be thinking about what you're going to do at first. You could just start playing, and then you'll get ideas as you go, and that's perfectly fine. So I just pushed in a couple of dots with a pen. That makes it look a little bit more like our character's looking at us, and I like having that little recessed point. But remember, don't leave your piece on the table while you push into it, or it's going to flatten out in the back and it's going to change your shape. So you always want to hold it when you're adding or changing things. What I'm going to do now is make my creature's tentacles. I decided I wanted to have more like an octopus type of tentacle. So I just rolled out a little coil here, and cool thing about Model Magic is you can actually just cut it with a pair of scissors. So you can just grab your scissors and kind of snip the pieces that you want. And I like to do this because it let me kind of get a sense of getting everything even. I wanted these legs to be about the same size. So doing it with my scissors made it easier for me to kind of do that and make sure they were all about the same size. So now I'm just going to make those shapes that I want with my clay. And I'm just rolling out these little cones, and then I kind of tapped it. If you want to flatten something out a little bit, you can just gently tap it on the table, and it kind of flattened out that edge. And now it's ready to stick onto my character. So again, I'm very gently holding it while I put that piece in place. I can kind of gently squeeze or push on it a little bit. And then I'm going to keep on doing that to build all of these body parts or all these tentacles for this particular character. So if you're making legs, that's perfectly fine. You can make legs, but you want to make sure that they're fairly thick. Another big trick about Model Magic is making sure that nothing you stick onto it is super, super skinny, because if you make a really skinny, thin piece, it is probably going to break off as it dries. You don't really want that to happen, because it's even gluing a really thin piece of clay back one is not going to give you what you want. It might not stay at all. So I am making one last piece so as I could fit on like 6 of these little tentacles, and you can carefully bend and twist the shapes as you want to do that. Another thing I love is texture. So you could have some different tools at your table. You might have pencils or even a paper clip or something like that, and you can kind of push into the surface to make some textures. One thing I will caution you about: don't push a pencil or a tool into it and drag through the Model Magic. The way this clay works doesn't respond well to having something drawn or pulled into it. You want to make sure that you're just pushing marks into the clay instead of dragging. Otherwise, it's going to kind of tear and pull and make some wrinkles. And I think if you take the time to add a little bit of texture here and there, it's going to really make your piece look more cool and interesting and kind of realistic, if you'd say. So I'm making another little piece here. I decided to make it blue. And I went ahead, I'm going to make some of these little tentacles shooting out of his head because I wanted this guy to look a bit like an alien, and that's just a choice I made for this particular character. So I'm making these little kind of tentacle shapes with a ball on top. And just like I did for the eyes, I'm going to carefully carve, very gently, you can see I'm pushing in there, a couple of holes where my tentacle can fit into, and I just kind of check to make sure it's big enough first. If it's not, I can go back in and just gently increase it, and that's what I'm doing here. And again, this will just kind of hold my tentacle a little bit better than just sticking it on. And again, you could, but it might fall off easier while it's drying, and then you'll have to re-glue it with Elmer's glue. So if you go ahead and want to add any extra parts like this that are small, you can see I didn't do that with the tentacles because the tentacles are really thick pieces of clay. But since these are a bit thinner, I wanted them a little bit more secure. Okay, so I actually just added some wrinkles by pushing into the surface with my pencil. And in this final step here, actually not the final step quite yet, I made a mouth. So I decided to make kind of a funny little mouth that's sticking out of my piece. And then I'm going to add a couple of arms. So just like I did for those tentacles, I decided to make the shape. I'm carving the shape, and then I'm going to push a little hole into where I want the mouth to be. I mean, that could work on its own for a mouth, but I wanted something that was kind of extruded, pushing out a little bit, just for the sense of expression. And this is where you can get really, really, really fun. You can make all kinds of expression with your creatures. You can be surprised or smiling or sad or grumpy or anything like that. And just a little bit of a change in the clay and the position of the clay will very much change the expression of your character. Um, and this last couple steps, I even added a couple of teeth. Again, that's why I saved some of that white clay. I put a little kind of puffy bunny tail on the back just to be fun. And this last step, I'm going to make some arms. And you want to think about what kind of arms does your character have? Is he going to have hands? Is he just going to have tentacles? Oh yeah, I forgot I put a little tongue in there too, because that I thought that would be kind of fun and a little silly. And I put on the arms very much the way that I put on the tentacles. And saving that little bit of white clay gives you time to kind of figure out what you want to add. And if you want to add some different colors, you can do that. So remember, always push into your clay. Don't drag into your clay. And there is my little alien creature. I'm going to show you one other character that I made that's more of a man, sort of a strange character. And I start the next character with a very different body shape. So it will give you a sense of what you can do. And I'm working on this one kind of fast. I just wanted to show you another character that I made to give you some more ideas about how I went about doing this. I want you to get as creative as possible. I want you to make your own characters. You can certainly learn or borrow from anything that you're seeing me do. But start with the body shape, save some clay, get a sense of what kind of character you want to make first. Robot, man, alien, animal, whatever that might be. And think first a little bit before you get started so that you're not disappointed when you get that idea maybe 5 minutes down the road. So always plan ahead. And then just have some fun. I think that this is a really great material if you ever get into doing it at home. You can buy Model Magic at lots of different places. They have it at Target, they have it at Michael's, they have it at lots of stores. I always get I like the white clay because I can color it however I want with marker. You can get colored clay too, but then you have to use that color that you get. So if you ever start sculpting with it at home, I might suggest to get a plainer color just so that you can decide how you want it to look instead of getting a pre-made color. But it all depends on what you're doing. So I hope you have fun, and I really, really would love to see some of these characters if you can. Please do upload some images into Google Classroom so I can take a look at them. I would absolutely love to see them. And I hope you have a great time today. Okay, lastly, you can't take these home straight away. The Model Magic will take a couple of days to cure and sort of be ready to handle. If you tried to take these home too quickly or move them around too much, they would very easily get destroyed and squished. I would say it takes about 3 days to get completely dry. So I would say you're going to be picking them up on Monday. And just sort of be careful with them. Even when they're dry, they're still a bit delicate. You could certainly push too hard on them, pinch them, and just completely bend them out of shape, and there's no way to fix them. So at the end of class, the best way to take care of this is just get your name on a little piece of paper, and then we need to find a safe and secure place in the classroom where no one's going to pick them up or actually bump into them before they're dry. So I would put them on a shelf perhaps, or somewhere up on top of a cabinet somewhere that they'll be safe and just ready to just dry and sit for a few days until they're ready to go. And just remember to treat them gently. They're not plastic. They're not a really hard clay. So they're going to be definitely more of a piece to look at and put on display. And I hope you had fun. And we'll see you again next time.